is a Laker.
It gets you hyped and excited about the possibilities.
A seismic shift. He's a force of nature.
You got to give kudos to Magic Johnson.
He's not done trying to win.
That shared vision is what brought LeBron James to Los Angeles.
This is what the Lakers do. LeBron James, a pen in his Lakers contract, finally all got together today. James signed up for real. Little late, but makes up for Magic Johnson being a little early. Magic got to James' house 60 minutes before free agents officially opened, so he had to wait in his car until the clock struck midnight. If you remember his TV show, that was the best Magic hour ever.
I was supposed to be there at 9:01, so I got there at 8:01. And so I was going to sit out there for an hour. Time to go up to his home, and it wasn't to sell the Lakers. He didn't want to hear that. He already knew the team almost better than I did. He broke the roster down right in front of me. Oh, the Cougs like to do this. So-and-so like, oh, I can't wait. You know, this guy is this. And I said, wow, man, he knows the entire roster. Loves Luke's system. And he said, Irvin, you know, I just want to come and be able to just play basketball and be me. And you have the type of roster that I think I can do that. We wanted guys who love to play the game. We wanted guys who love to compete. They love to win. They love to sweat. And when you have the greatest player in the world come join your organization, it raises everybody's level of play.
LeBron is a Laker. Now, that's the short four-word version. Ramona Shelburne went 4,500 words on the subject in a story that just posted on ESPN.com. The internet has more ink than TV does. So the day LeBron became a Laker, behind-the-scenes stories. Ramona with us now on SportsCenter. And let's take it from the very top on down. Jeannie Buss stayed out of it and stayed awake. Give us her perspective of what she told you.
Well, you know, Jeannie had been doing this for the last 18 months, really, when she fired her brother and she fired Mitch Kupchak and installed Magic Johnson in that spot as president of basketball operations. This was her attempt to say, look, I tried to do it the way that I thought my dad wanted to run this franchise, right? I thought he wanted my brother and me to try to do it. That wasn't working out. We had to change everything. And she did that by putting Magic Johnson in there as the president of basketball operations for this kind of moment, for this kind of recruiting period. But at that point, she had done everything she could do. And I remember talking to her and said, so what did you do the night before? What did you do the morning of? And she said, I was actually home watching Rachel Nichols on The Jump, just like everybody else. And, you know, the first part obviously didn't go well. They didn't get Paul George. I said, were you able to fall asleep? She goes, yeah, I actually fell asleep, but I woke up at 4 a.m. and absolutely couldn't sleep at all. I was tossing and turning. You know, there was nothing to do but really wait for the sun to come up. She had friends coming over and spent the whole day just looking at her phone, waiting for it to buzz with some sort of news. The meeting with LeBron was actually such a secret that Jeannie knew that it was happening. A couple other people in the Lakers organization knew that it was happening, but that was it. And they were under such lock and key. There was such pressure to keep this a secret because if it leaked, that was a major violation of trust with LeBron James because he had asked to keep this process quiet. And so she spent all day looking at her phone, waiting for it to buzz. Finally, a little after 5 o'clock, there's a text message from Rich Paul that says, congratulations. She said she was driving her car. She had to pull over because she was so excited and said, you know, this is something my dad would have really liked. This is something that he would have wanted to accomplish.
Yeah, let's go with the congrats text because Rob Pelinka, right? We don't have a decision. we don't have a big essay article. We're getting texts with balloon emojis or something. What is this about? You got balloons.
Yeah, I think what was interesting with Rob Pelinka. I know, you know, the emoji game is pretty strong in the NBA, though, because, like, that's kind of how you convey emotion. And Rich Paul had to get in touch with a lot of people very quickly. So I think he might have, like, cut and pasted the same text. Like, I'm just guessing, but a lot of people told me they got that same text. I think what's interesting with Rob and Magic, though, is that they had – one of the things that Jeannie told me about what they had done over the last year to get ready for something like this is they went into this with plan A, B, C, and D. And that was something that she was really trying to change from the previous regime where her brother Jim Buss was in charge and Mitch Kupchak was in charge. She said she went to a couple of the free agent meetings in the past. And one of them, she just threw her hands up. She said they didn't even have a coach in place to sell the vision that they were pitching. And their answer was, well, you know, we can ask them who they want to coach. And she goes, but then what if you can't get that coach? And, usually as a writer, somebody gives you a throwaway word like anyway, you cut that word at the end, right? But in this case, I left it because it really conveyed the emotion that she felt, the frustration she felt at how the Lakers had been operating that needed to change. And that was why she felt confident as she could be when Rob Pelinka and Magic Johnson were in charge of running this with LeBron James. Now, I'm going to pause right here and say this. They were in charge of recruiting LeBron James, but LeBron James made this decision.
Right.
LeBron James basically has the level of power. He says, here's what I want. Are you going to give this to me? Is this acceptable to you? It's not necessarily like you have to sell yourself to LeBron James. They've been selling themselves to LeBron James for 18 months, and it's all based on the actions they've been taking to reform the franchise and remake it in the way that Jeannie Buss thought it should have been.
Okay, they do have a coach, and it's Luke Walton, and if it's the Waltons, there's got to be a Grateful Dead story. And this is, thank you for my life,
man.
Kitty Mayne. This is terrific. Listen, let's hear it.
Well, look, Luke Walton was, he was one of the people who, they kept him a little out of the loop of this, right? He kind of had to sit back and let Rob Pelinka and Magic Johnson work on this. He didn't talk to LeBron James. He wasn't part of the pitch. He had his pitch ready if they called on him, but he had to sit back and wait. He said he had a barbecue going. They were playing cornhole. His kids were out by the pool, and all of a sudden his phone rings and they got LeBron James. And at one point, he got on the phone with his dad, Bill Walton, who was at a Grateful Dead concert. And in the background is Mickey Hart, the drummer. And Mickey, he said his dad was quoting lyrics to him, and Mickey Hart jumps in and says, the rhythm is everything. And Luke goes, once I figure out what that means, I'm sure this is really going to help. I don't know what it means, but somehow Bill Walton always has an appearance in one of these stories. And I think that what's interesting for Luke is, they were drafted in the same year, Luke Walton and LeBron James. Now, he was a fifth-year senior, and LeBron had come out of high school, so he's quite a bit older. But he's got experience with star players before. He played with Kobe, right? He's been with Phil Jackson. They've won championships. He's seen all the drama. But for the last 2 years, he's been leading a youth movement, right? He's been trying to coach the young kids. His life is about to change. And I think he had, he got advice from Eric Spoelstra, he got advice from Kobe Bryant. But I think deep down, he kind of understands, look, this is how it's going to be. When we win, it's going to be great and it's going to be wild. When we lose, it's going to be the end of the world. We're going to be on SportsCenter every night, and it's going to be fun.
And there was advice from the drummer of the Grateful Dead.
Obviously.
All the stuff you want to read, it's on ESPN.com right now. Ramona Shelburne, thanks for your time. Go read it. It's terrific.
Wojnarowski reporting Carmelo Anthony has permission from Oklahoma City to speak with other teams. Anthony and his reps reportedly met with the Rockets and the Heat recently at Summer League in Vegas. Melo will waive his no-trade clause to facilitate a trade to a team that will release him, or the Thunder will exercise the NBA's waive and stretch provision on Anthony. Brian Windhorst joining me now. Brian, we just heard that update from Woj, but take us through why the OKC Carmelo separation plan could be more complicated than meets the eye.
Yeah, so what you're getting here is both sides are giving each other something. Melo is now freed up to talk to other teams to arrange a place for him to land. And Melo, who has a no-trade clause, is allowing the Thunder to go find a place to trade for him. Here's the issue, though. At the end of the day, today, Melo is a toxic asset. And in order for you to trade him, you're going to either have to attach some goodies, draft picks or cash, which the Thunder don't want to do, or you're going to have to take back your own toxic asset or assets in return. So before you run to the trade machine and figure out how your team can trade for Carmelo Anthony, realize that the only way this trade would go through is if it's to one of Melo's preferred teams, or if that team instantly will release Carmelo Anthony. And that's a big thing to swallow because he's got a $28 million guaranteed salary for this season.
Hey, things seem to be really, really quiet surrounding the Spurs and Kawhi Leonard. What lies ahead next in this process as it plays out?
Yeah, so the next important thing is 2 weeks from tomorrow, Jay, and that is the Team USA training camp. There's a get-together in Las Vegas at the end of this month. The brand new head coach of Team USA, Greg Popovich, on the roster and expected to be there for training camp, or at least to meet with his new teammates, Kawhi Leonard. Now, in the past, we have seen players who are in stalemates with their teams be excused. Most recently, Kevin Love in 2014, when he had demanded a trade, he was excused. That said, this is an opportunity. If they could somehow get in the same room together of Greg Popovich and Kawhi Leonard working together, possibly finding some way to move forward. At the end of the day, the Spurs are going to want to exhaust all options before they trade Kawhi Leonard. They have not exhausted all options yet. And even if this ultimately doesn't mean a connection and Kawhi begs off and doesn't come to Las Vegas, it's something that the Spurs are looking to see if they can create something to build on.
Okay, one more for you while I have you here. Sources tell ESPN the Rockets' initial offer to restricted free agent Clint Capella was in the 4 years, $60 million range. But he's looking for a $100 million contract, similar to the deal that Thunder big man Steven Adams received. What are the chances that the Rockets and Capella can close that gap a bit?
The problem here is both sides are being reasonable. Clint Capella is worth that $100 million deal that Steven Adams got a couple of years ago. But the Rockets look out there and see there's nobody left who can make him that offer. And the offer is, your market is what you can get out there on the open market, and he can't get that offer. And so the Rockets are playing hardball. It's hard to be a restricted free agent. It's really hard to be a restricted free agent in 2018 when there's not space out there. Capella really has two options here. He can take his qualifying offer, which would mean he would leave $15+ million on the table this year that he could earn, and then become an unrestricted free agent in a year. Or he could just hold out, waiting for the Rockets to come up with a higher offer. Maybe that's August, maybe it's October, maybe it's later. We've seen both weapons used. Neither one of them are good for this relationship, so hopefully there's a middle ground. But right now, there's a lot of acrimony there.
All right, we'll keep watching that. Brian Windhorst, thank you for all that. Appreciate you, brother.
Change. Doris Burke joins me now from the Las Vegas Summer League. And Doris, we continue to wait on Kawhi Leonard, but those Lakers do have the assets to pair him alongside LeBron. I mean, how aggressive do you think Lakers brass should be in this situation?
Well, Sage, to your point about those assets, to get an elite two-way player in Kawhi, even though we don't know where he is physically, the reality is you're going to have to give up something, and something valuable. But the one piece I would refuse to give up is Brandon Ingram. He has the kind of size, length, and skill on the perimeter that is so coveted in this league. He has worked incredibly hard to become a more efficient three-point shooter. He is now confident enough in his handle to go left and right and attack the cup. And the reality is the more his body fills out, the more repetition he gets, he is going to be a big-time problem as a scorer in this league. He's tapping potential that's, to me, still has a very high ceiling. No way I give up Brandon Ingram.
Yeah, you are definitive about that. Don't even ask about Brandon. Okay, on another topic, Doris, according to Adrian Wojnarowski, the Thunder granted Carmelo Anthony permission to meet with prospective teams. That includes Houston and Miami. I mean, we keep hearing about Houston. How do you see him fitting in with their current roster there?
Well, there is an immediate comfortability with his good friend Chris Paul. And I know that Chris, through the 1 year in Houston, has earned equity both with the front office and with Mike D'Antoni. But the one thing I wonder about is what are the conversations centering on? Because last year, Carmelo Anthony told me when he went to Oklahoma City, his expectation going in was that they would all average 30. I don't see that happening. What I'm curious about is can they access Carmelo Anthony's post game, his mid-range game into that offense, or is he going to be a spot-up shooter? And the content of those conversations fascinate me. I hope it comes out eventually, Sage.
Yeah, me too. Hurry up, guys. Okay, tonight, on the call there in Vegas, 2 games, Kings-Grizzlies. Let's focus on the second one, Lakers and Knicks. What are you keeping your eye on for that one?
Well, I'm a Knicks fan. I can be unbiased in the summer. I love Kevin Knox. I love his skill set. I love his game. I love his demeanor. I had a chance to talk to him on the way out of the arena yesterday. New York is a difficult place to play, and this guy has the countenance and comportment to handle that scrutiny. But again, length and athleticism, ability to stretch you in transition. He's a big-time scorer, and I love the idea of him at the 4 and Kristaps Porzingis at the 5. So Mr. Knox is a delightful kid, and he's a delightful talent, and he gives hope to the Knicks. On the other side, listen, Mo Wagner is tremendous. I have been so impressed here with this kid's demeanor, Sage. He is 6'10", he can shoot the ball, he can put it on the deck. But the thing that's really surprised me is the edge that this young man plays with. Super skilled, but you better be a little bit mean and have a little bit of toughness, and Mr. Wagner has all of that.
So a completely unbiased Doris Burke today. That Nick Panda may or may not come through. We're allowed to do this in Summer League. Doris Burke with Mark Jones in the call tonight. Both games live on ESPN2. Thank you, Doris. Enjoy.